presidential primary ballot, saying he violated the 14th Amendment. But this suit was not brought by Democrats. 4 Republican voters in the Centennial State filed to have Trump removed from the ballot. Now, more than a dozen states are attempting to follow suit. Joining me now, Steve Simon, Minnesota Secretary of State and President-elect of the National Association of Secretaries of State. Secretary Simon, thank you very much for coming to the Saturday show. Last month, the Minnesota Supreme Court dismissed an effort to keep Donald Trump off the state's primary ballot in 2024. Why was the Colorado Supreme Court successful in banning Trump from the ballot, but not Minnesota?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And just to clarify, I'm here on my own accord, not on behalf of any organization. But when it comes to Colorado, I think it just could be as simple as the mix of human beings making this decision. In Minnesota, they took another path. In Minnesota, they said, basically, this case is not yet ripe, that nomination contests are an intra-party contests, are not a real election in the sense that they're just about delegate allocation. And basically, they said, come back to us when and if Donald Trump is the nominee. In Colorado, of course, it was a whole different kind of thing. In Colorado, they had evidentiary hearings, they had a district court, they had testimony, and they had kind of a factual record. And so the court, apparently, in Colorado, felt that it was able to make the decision. It was able to pull the trigger and make that momentous judgment.
Now, you're a Secretary of State, and among your many duties is helping make sure that elections go off the way they are supposed to. Just logistically, I mean, have you seen anything like this? I mean, we're talking about this at the presidential level, but has this happened at even the local level?
I have to say, it is unprecedented. Another way to say that is it is administratively crazy. I really, really sympathize and empathize with my colleague Jenna Griswold in Colorado, because she, and maybe more importantly her voters, are sort of up in the air now about what's really going to happen here. Is a major presidential party candidate going to be on the ballot or not? And that's just now in the primary season. There's that extra angst and anxiety trying to figure out just logistically, just administratively, how this is going to work if and when this spills over into a general election. So yes, from the standpoint of just election administration, you always want clarity. You always want to know well in advance who the candidates are. You want to be able to do things as simple as print ballots and know who's going to be on those ballots. So yes, administratively, it's a headache, to put it mildly.
Last year, a New Mexico Republican was removed from office for the same reason that Trump was ordered off the 2024 Colorado ballot. New Mexico is now one of several states with pending litigation against Trump being on the ballot. Do you expect to see more rulings in favor of Trump being banned from the ballot?
My sense, and it's only a guess, is that a lot of states are in wait-and-see mode. This is the canary in the coal mine. This is the case that's headed, we know, almost certainly to the U.S. Supreme Court. So I think a lot of people, and maybe more to the point, a lot of litigants, a lot of people who have already brought these suits or are thinking about bringing these suits, are probably waiting and seeing to see what the Supreme Court does. And just, so your viewers know, there are a number of different outcomes and combinations here. The Supreme Court might not finally answer the question. It's certainly possible that the U.S. Supreme Court will throw it back to Colorado and say, no, you need to develop the factual record a little bit more. You need to have more testimony. You need to have more due process. They might not actually rule. And that might be a signal to people in other states thinking of bringing these suits, or people who already have, about how they might go about their business. So there are a number of different clues that people are waiting for, I think.
Well, what do you think? Do you think that the Supreme Court would actually take this kind of case, a Colorado case, or maybe another case could pop up along the same lines?
I think they're going to have to. I've said all along, since this issue was brewing, that we're never going to have a situation in this country where one or some cluster of states decides that Donald Trump is not on the ballot and everyone else decides he is. He will either be on the ballot everywhere or nowhere, and the U.S. Supreme Court is going to make sure of that. So they will take the case. There's no question in my mind, just for the sake of national uniformity. And that means we're going to have resolution. We're going to have clarity here. But as I say, there are so many different combinations. There are so many different ways that the Supreme Court could go. There are multiple off-ramps for them, for example, to decide the case without deciding the ultimate issue, which is, did Donald Trump engage in or help an insurrection? They don't have to decide that. There are a number of ways they can dispose of the case and get an outcome without deciding that question.
Right, and in your answer, that characterizes why I love the law so much, because it's the question that is the specific question that is asked that a court is asked to render judgment on and to answer. And so you have given us a great education here. Secretary of State Steve Simon from the great state of Minnesota, thank you very much for joining us this morning.